Hello friends, I hope you're having a good day. Today we are going to be making some super easy recipes. Today we are going to be tackling butter and sandwich bread.
Okay, so the first thing you want to do is just pour all of your heavy cream into the stand mixer. Watch out because it will splash. You can use the splash guard, but I tend not to do that with butter anyway. I mean, this works just as fine. You can also get heavy whipping cream from your local raw milk person or like dairy farmer. So now that we have all of the cream and everything in there, go ahead and throw these away. I do tend to start on a low setting so that way there's no splashing involved. So go ahead and do that. I would probably come back in about 5 minutes and then turn it up a couple more. I know this sounds weird, but you don't want it to be splashing everywhere. And some people think, oh yeah, I'm gonna go full bore right away. No, you don't. You wanna go low and slow at first, and then we will turn it and crank it up and it'll whip the butter right away. I will show you each step of the way. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up a little bit to the first one. Show you what it looks like. And then I'm gonna go another one. So I just paused it here after 3 minutes. It's starting to bubble up and whip, and this is just the start of the process. So check it in another 5 minutes. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has decided to subscribe and is sticking with me throughout this journey. This is no way, shape, or form my full-time job as a content creator, but one day, hopefully, I would like that to be. As of right now, I'm only doing it when I can and when I have time. So I do appreciate everybody who has decided to stick with me. I am now showing you the sourdough ingredients for the sandwich bread, and I will leave a list of the breakdown or a screenshot of everything. You'll need salt, butter, a little bit of sugar, and as well as a little bit of yeast and your sourdough. This is a fast rise dough, and you'll need some measuring tools, of course, some flour as well. Okay, I want to pop this up. It's been 10 minutes actually, and it's going to get a little bit harder to look at here, but you can see it starting to separate a little bit, the yellowness in there. So we're going to pop that back down. We're going to check it in another 5 to 10 minutes. I forgot to say that you do want to try to scrape it every once in a while from the sides to get everything incorporated. Sometimes it likes to stick to the sides when it gets to this point, and I just kind of like pull it mostly off the sides so that way it can get fully incorporated. And we're almost there, believe it or not. Right now I'm just getting everything ready to go, and that is why I'm doing a voiceover, because otherwise you would hear the butter stirring in the background. I am just checking the temperature of the warm water because I don't want it too hot, otherwise it will kill the bacteria in the yeast and the yeast from the sourdough. So mix in that sugar and or honey, and then continue to mix in the rest of the ingredients. I wait usually for the butter, and I do like to have the yeast kind of bubble over just a smidge, and that way I know it's well activated and incorporated. And we are going to let that sit for about 5 minutes. Okay, so I paused it and I just kind of want to show you, it's starting to really clump up. You can tell that the butter is starting to form. It is getting more yellow. You do want to scrape the sides off at this point again, just so that way everything gets fully incorporated. You can see that the way is, sorry, you can see that the buttermilk is starting to separate from the butter. We want to make sure that we get all of the sides. And actually this is mostly butter right here, but gotta make sure that we get everything in there.
Okay, now that this has been sitting for 5 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and mix in my sourdough starter as well as my flour and butter. And I'm kind of just eyeballing this a little bit just because working with sourdough, you eventually see like what you need to add, if you need to add a little more liquid or if you need to add a little more flour. And apparently I added a little bit more sourdough starter in that, so that's okay. This is all very forgiving in this recipe, so if you're new to sourdough, it is a great place to start, I feel like, and it's not so overwhelming and daunting. I do kind of like to incorporate things that's not so chunky and then go ahead and mix the rest of the ingredients together. You will see me here adding a little bit of salt to the flour, and that's usually what I do. I don't like to add the salt straight to the wet ingredients. And then I start mixing slowly to incorporate everything, and then eventually I'll start working the dough with my hands as well. Now, before you guys jump on me, I have to laugh at myself because typically I do not make a straight mess like this, but it was too good not to share. So remind yourself, put on a splash guard as well as drape a cloth over.
Started to make a mess, so put your splash guard up. I want to show you what beautiful mess that we have though. This is all butter separated from the buttermilk. I'm going to take this out, move it over to the sink, and then I'll show you what to do next. I'm going to use a strainer and just place it in the sink. If you want to save buttermilk, which I already have a lot of, you don't need to do that. You can use a nut cloth or butter muslin. I'm going to pour it actually into here. First of all, if you have something like this, you want to take it off. Now, I've seen multiple people do it different ways. First and foremost, you just want to clean your butter off of your whisk and get it into a strainer of some sort or into your bowl. You don't want to let this goodness go down the drain. So this is the first step. Make sure you get everything. I am not going to be saving this buttermilk. Or should I? Oh, I don't know. I should. I'm going to. Okay. I'm going to save the buttermilk. So this is what we're going to do. So I have this little nutbag. I know it sounds weird to say, but this is what it's going to look like. I am going to slowly pour it into here, into this bag. So that way all of it collects. I don't want it to go over the bowl underneath, but look how much butter I have. That's a lot. Let it drip a little bit. Let some of that buttermilk kind of come off of that for a minute. That's a lot of butter. Woo! I'm loving it. This is exciting. And then you want to squeeze all that buttermilk out. You can use buttermilk for baking. If you have a dehydrator or a freeze dryer, you can make your own buttermilk powder or just freeze it in cubes or in a freezer or a freezer safe bowl with a lid. And you can actually let this hang on a hook over a bowl as well for the remainder of time. We got a lot of buttermilk. I'll show you all the buttermilk. So I will be saving that. We'll just put that to the side. And I like to keep the strainer or the colander, whatever you choose. You want to be near water. Some people choose to do this over like the actual butter itself. Make sure it's cold water. And you're still squeezing that buttermilk out of the butter. That's why I like a cloth or something, like a cheesecloth, just because you can still keep everything intact. And the next thing I do, make sure you're using cold water. I take the butter out. It's got to be at least at least 2 pounds. Cold water. And you want to do it until the water in your bowl runs clear. Woo! Okay, a little more. And you can shape this any way you want after. I think I'm going to be separating this and just doing some salted butter and some non-salted butter. But look at this. Like, that is a lot. Some people will like smooth it out, whatever. I'm going to pop it into my bowl here, and then we're going to let it sit for a minute, see if any more buttermilk comes out of it. And then, since I'm going to be using this reusable bag again, I am turning on the hot water and getting all of that out of here. After I put that into the fridge, I'm going to take all of my ingredients. I just kind of hand mixed it a little bit. I'm going to take this dough and plop it right into here, along with any other bits I didn't get. I may have to add a little bit of flour because, or a little more water. I did spill a little bit of water with this sandwich bread. I've never made this recipe, so I'm excited to see how it turns out. But depending on your climate, you may have to add, you know, more water or just a tinge more flour. So keep that on hand still. Depending on your elevation, some places are warmer, some places are a little more humid, depending on when you're making this. It is winter here. I'm gonna put this on a slow speed. Okay, I have let this stir for about 5 minutes. It's hard to do things one-handed. Okay, I took this out and just formed it into a dough ball. I am going to cover this and we're gonna let it sit for an hour. I'm actually going to put it in my oven. It is not preheating as of yet because we have to do one more step after this, but it'll keep it nice and toasty and hopefully it'll get nice and big. So I actually got about 4 cups worth of buttermilk in these 2 jars. These are pint-sized canning jars. I'm looking here, this says 1 cup right about here, so it is about halfway. So about 4 cups total. I'm gonna go ahead and put these wide mouth jars into the freezer. Never put a regular mouth jar in the freezer, it will break, just the wide mouth. And you can also use these in like ice cube trays and just make sure to label them. And you know, we can kind of go over what you can use buttermilk in on a later date, but this is liquid gold basically. So I just took the bread out of the oven. It looks like it's about doubled in size. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out. The directions say to put it on a floured surface or fold it and then put it into a well-greased pan. And I'm going to do that. And then we got to let it proof for at least another hour. So now I'm going to actually take some of the butter I made and we're going to use that to grease up the pan if I can get it. This is so exciting. Sorry, the lighting is not doing so well. So I'm going to just take this little pat of butter and then I'm going to grease the pan really well and get that all over the place. And then after this, I am actually going to use, I have some round parchment paper, so I'm going to use that. So far, this is pretty easy. I've done other bread recipes, but I want to know like how it's going to turn out. I kind of planned this because I have to go pick up raw milk here in a second. So, okay. And since I think a lot of stuff tends to burn, I'm actually going to use this. Especially when I make breads, I like to make sure that it doesn't burn. And then I'm going to kind of stick it in there. And then that way it'll be a little bit easier for me to kind of pull it out. Make sure the corners get well. Look at that. And then I'm just going to take the rest of the butter. This butter is going to seep through this, but I feel like it just adds a little extra protection from the elements. Flour this. Ooh. So now we have to let this rise for another hour. Okay, so I had to go run and get raw milk, but this is what it's like after 1 hour. It is heaping over the sides, which is what we wanted. It doesn't look like bad at all. So I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. I do have to create a tent for it before I pop it in the oven.
And that here is the end of everything. This recipe turned out super easy. I am trying to do things one-handed. My daughter is screaming at me in the background, and I really want to give her my full attention. This is probably by far the easiest fast rise sourdough recipe that I've found. Again, I will list it in the comments below. I just want to show you what it's like to use the butter that we just made together in addition to the cool down bread. My daughter was the first one to try it and she loved it. Like I said, super easy way to kind of start out your weekend and get things going so that way you don't have to buy bread in the store or butter. Let me know what you guys think if you try these recipes and if you make your own butter. If you have a good recipe as well, link it down in the comments. Thank you for joining me.